So right now there's thousands of people just kind of watching, looking towards the police lines, waiting to see what happens. It looks like they're just ready for a fight. They're waiting for the police to push forward. And there's a building right next to that burning barricade, and that's now on fire too. It's called Lose the Jewel. There's a man behind me, half naked, wielding a chainsaw. The police are firing rubber bullets in this direction, so we're having to move. Okay, this is the very front line of the barricades on Hereshkova Street. The protesters are shooting fireworks now towards the police. It's like a post-apocalyptic nightmare down here. It's insane. So the protesters have opened up a corridor on the steps in front of the building. The police inside have surrendered, so they're going to let them out and then retake Ukraine House. The next day, Ukraine House was firmly under the control of the protesters.
On the front line, there is a so-called right sector, and they are of these a little bit violent organizations.
Right. So you have paramilitary organization with military experience on the front lines of the Euromaidan protests.
Yes, but I don't think the main factor in the whole right sector.
Sure. Okay, okay.
Конфликт здесь гораздо глубже, и в бой благословляют вот этих негодяев священники. Непонятно из какой конфессии, но явно не те священники.
Я знаю какие. УГКЦ.
Я не буду утверждать кто, но
я утверждаю.
Тем не менее людей, у которых нацистская символика на щитах, и которые сегодня наступают на наших бойцов, на меня и на моих собратьев в том числе.
Как вас зовут, товарищ майор?
Меня зовут Александр.
Пожалуйста, вот эти офицеры. А завтра, 29 числа, будут круты, будет марш, будут опять коммуняку на гиляку и москалів на ночи. А это следы камней, железных палок, битые, гнутые щиты.
We have been actively engaged in what's been happening in the Ukraine. Not only has our embassy and our folks who are over there been talking to the opposition as well as the government, but folks like Vice President Biden have spoken directly to President Yanukovych about our belief that, number one, rules that restrict protests and free speech are ultimately counterproductive, and we are very much against. Number two, that there has to be a way to restructure the Ukrainian government in a way that allows the voices of the opposition and those folks on the streets to be heard in preparation for some sort of democratic process that creates a government with greater legitimacy and unity. And that's going to be challenging, but we're trying to help on the negotiations on that. It's very hard for countries to engage in old-style politics that doesn't take into account the genuine hopes and aspirations of ordinary people, because with the internet and smartphones and Google and technology and information, people want to be part of determining their own destiny, and you can't bottle up information in the same way that you used to, and hopefully those in power in Ukraine are going to recognize that, and we can get this resolved peacefully. I'm always worried about the violence, but as I said, we're engaging on a daily basis with the Ukrainian government to make sure that we get a positive outcome there.
Russians have repeatedly accused the United States government of interfering in Ukraine's politics. Mm-hmm. The U.S. government has to some degree made reciprocal claims about Russia. Does not the fact that U.S. diplomats purportedly are discussing who should and should not be in a Ukrainian government hint at some possibility of U.S. interference here?
Absolutely not.
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as deputy prime minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now, so we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yats. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea. I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay.
When I talked to Jeff Feltman this morning, he had a new name for the UN guy, Robert Seri. Did I write you that this morning?
Yeah, I saw that.
He's now gotten both Seri and Ban Ki-moon to agree that Seri could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think
it shouldn't be a surprise that there are discussions about events on the ground.
This was more than discussions, though. This was 2 top U.S. officials that are on the ground discussing a plan that they have to broker a future government and bringing officials from the UN to kind of seal the deal. This is more than the U.S. trying to make suggestions. This is the U.S. midwifing the process.
Well, Elise, you're talking about a private diplomatic conversation Those happen all the time. Of course, as part of private diplomatic conversations, there are discussions about what involvement the UN can have, what involvement or engagement should happen on the ground. That shouldn't be a surprise. Of course, these things are being discussed. It doesn't change the fact that it's up to the people on the ground. It is up to the people of Ukraine to determine what the path forward is. There is a difference between private discussions that happen in the interagency process, in the building, and what we convey publicly as a U.S. government. And we have a responsibility to convey what our position is. Of course, you're discussing a range of options on a range of issues.
But if you,
that's what you do as a diplomat.
If you're saying privately behind the scenes that you're cooking up a deal, and then you're saying publicly that this is up for Ukrainians to decide, those are two totally different things. I understand that diplomatic discussions are sensitive and you don't want everything to come out, but those are two totally different positions.
Elise, what do you think happens behind closed doors when people are discussing issues internally through the interagency?
This is not discussing issues. This is talking about a deal that the U.S. was cooking up.
But we hold the Ukrainian government primarily responsible for making sure that it is dealing with peaceful protesters in an appropriate way, that the Ukrainian people are able to assemble and speak freely about their interests without fear of repression. And that includes making sure that the Ukrainian military does not step in to what should be a set of issues that can be resolved by civilians.
Сука, продаж! Успокойтесь!
And I do think there is still the possibility of a peaceful transition within Ukraine, but it's going to require the government in particular to actively seek that peaceful transition, and it requires the opposition and those on the streets to recognize that violence is not going to be the path by which this issue will be resolved.
Right down in Independence Square, two Cossacks beating out a constant drumbeat by the barricades. They're still arriving here to sign up. More volunteers marched off to join the cause. Coming back the other way, members of the People's Self-Defence, awaiting orders outside the Ministry of Agriculture. The man on the left armed with a mace.
It was just up the road from here that yesterday much of the shooting took place. But many of these protesters have been working throughout the night to rebuild their barricades, their front line. And this is the third time they've done it. And when you talk to them here, they're absolutely determined that the president stands down and stands down quickly.
In the Parliament, government and opposition MPs had to be kept apart. But whilst they were lunging at each other, a group of EU foreign ministers was shuttling back and forth, negotiating a deal to end the violence. Finally, after marathon talks, the two sides signed. The opposition had been warned by an EU minister that the alternative was martial law. So a deal was agreed, ushering in new elections, a coalition government, and a reduction in the president's powers.
I am satisfied that it's the best agreement that could be had and that it gives Ukraine a chance to return to peace, to reform and to hopefully resume its way towards Europe.
But when the opposition leaders returned to Independence Square, there was no celebration. Vitaly Klitschko, one of the leaders, was drowned out with boos and cries of traitor. Yes, Ukraine has an agreement, but not much trust on either side. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Kiev.
Ukraine's opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko has called for continued demonstrations in the Ukraine capital. Her powerful and passionate plea for further protests against the ousted President Viktor Yanukovych capped an extraordinary day of events. It came hours after Parliament approved a measure allowing the former Prime Minister to be freed after spending 30 months in jail for abuse of power. We must do a few important things together. Firstly, we have to ensure that Yanukovych and all that garbage around him are brought here to Maidan, she said.
Protesters and many Ukrainians have no faith left in politicians' words. So that's why protesters basically en masse decided to stay on Independence Square and all around other, protest site in the country to control what is happening in New Revolutionary Parliament and to control this very delicate process of forming a new interim government and the way to the new presidential elections in May.
Vitaly, can I very quickly just ask you, do you know where Viktor Yanukovych is right now?
It's a good question. Millions of Ukrainians want to know where is Yanukovych and try to find him. He disappeared. President of Ukraine disappeared. That's why we have to elect a new one.
You signed an agreement with the president, or with Viktor Yanukovych on Friday, that he could stay as president until early elections. What went wrong?
Because he disappeared. He doesn't feel everything, all points, what we signed. This was so high temperature in society, and we have to stop that. And and in constitutional way, in constitution majority in parliament, we want to move to Constitution 2004, and after that we tried to find him holiday. In evening we decide to announce new president election.
In Ukraine, power was taken by nationalists, fascist youngsters. I just moved from Kiev to the city of Kharkov, and during my traveling, when I was still in Kiev, I was shot at from the automatic rifles. I never gave any orders to the police to shoot. You know that the police was unarmed until the last moment, until there was the danger of their death. I'm sure that there will be time and there will be truth. Truth will win, and everybody will know the truth.
We left the hotel and ventured up towards the new front line. The majority of the gunfire seemed to be coming from police lines, but not all of it. From one of the upper windows of the hotel, a shot rang out.
Up there, okay, yeah, our hotel. That window, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth row from the left, second from the top, one that was open.
I saw the shooter. He was wearing one of the protesters' green helmets.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
And you?
I'm good, good. I just wanted to catch up with you on what you thought when you were there.
My impression is in this sense sad that there is, well, no trust towards also these politicians who will return now to the coalition. Well, people from Maidan and from civil society, they say that they know everybody who will be in new government. All these guys have dirty past.
Yeah.
Because the Regions Party also said that, well, you will see that if the people from the eastern part of Ukraine will really wake up and will start to demand their rights. Some people also with me, they were in Donetsk. Their people said that, well, we can't wait how long still the occupation of Ukraine lasts in Donetsk.
Yeah.
That it is real Russian city, and we'd like now to see that, well, Russia will take over. So that, well, short impressions.
Ацик, скоро прямой будет через пару минут. Тебе нужно показывать трупы.
And second, what was quite disturbing, the same Olga told that, well, all the evidence shows that people who were killed by snipers from both sides, among policemen and people from the streets, that they were the same snipers killing people from both sides.
Well, that's, yeah.
So that, and then she also showed me some photos. She said that has medical doctor. She can, say that it is the same handwriting, the same type of bullets, and it's really disturbing that now the new coalition, that they don't want to investigate what exactly happened. So that there is now stronger and stronger understanding that behind snipers it was not Yanukovych, but it was somebody from the new coalition.
I think they do want to investigate. I mean, I didn't pick that up. That's interesting. Gosh.
Yeah. So that it was, in this sense, disturbing that if it starts now to live its own life very powerfully, that it already discreditates from very beginning also this new coalition.
In place of the defiant speeches, the sombre strains of Beethoven now ring out over Independence Square. This revolution is moving into a new phase. But amidst the flowers and the children's tributes, flashes of something more sinister. Groups of armed men strut through the square with dubious iconography. That yellow armband is a Volksangel, a German symbol used by several SS divisions during the Second World War. Far-right graffiti is appearing, daubed on the walls of the city. The people who brought down the government were overwhelmingly ordinary Ukrainians, students and doctors, workers and even families, people who simply refused to back down. But the most organised and perhaps the most effective were a small number of far-right groups. When it came to confrontations with the police, it was often the nationalists who were the loudest and the most violent. A group calling itself the Right Sector is perhaps the largest. Its members can be seen marching around Kiev in columns of about a dozen. Mostly they carry baseball bats. Sometimes they carry guns. We met these men posing for pictures outside the burnt-out remains of what was once their headquarters. I asked them about their political beliefs.
Национал-социалистская тематика иногда в некоторых людях она есть проступает. Как бы, чтобы была единая нация. Но не у всех это не заложено в основе этой организации, это у некоторых людей есть.
А у вас?
У меня лично есть.
В смысле? Объясните.
Мне как бы нравится эта идея единой нации. Я хочу, чтобы нация была единая, чтобы один народ, одна страна, одна нация.
А это подразумевается что?
Как бы, чтобы чистая нация. Не то, что там, как бы у Гитлера как было. В своем роде немножко, маленько, но было, чтобы своя нация.
What about the East, I asked? What about Crimea, where many Ukrainians feel close historical ties to Russia?
Кому нравится Россия, пусть едут в Россию. Украина только для украинцев.
We got a late-night phone call from another group known as C14, inviting us to meet their leader at their new base. It turned out to be the former headquarters of the Communist Party, now occupied by the far right.
It's our general mission to totally ruin chains that connect our country with the imperial power from the past.
And that being Russia?
Yes, we can do Russia, not only Russia, Soviet Union.
Are you a Nazi?
No, I don't think I'm a Nazi, I'm a Ukrainian nationalist.
What does that mean?
The main confrontation is about that some ethnic groups have control many business structures, some economic, some political forces, and
which ethnic groups?
Russians and Jews and the Poles. It may be some non-Ukrainian group control a huge percent of some economic or political power. And of course, in this situation, Ukrainian people have some tension between it, and it causes conflicts.
Mr. Karas says his group consists of around 200 men. C14 is affiliated with a political party called Svoboda, or Freedom, which now controls 4 ministries in the new government, including the Ministry of Defence. The fervour of the revolution is beginning to fade now. People are starting to move on. But it's clear that it was the radical groups who kept up the pressure on Viktor Yanukovych, and many of them feel that this really is their victory. The question is, how much power will that give the far right in the new Ukraine?
In the former Soviet Republic Ukraine, controversial video has surfaced showing the reburial of Ukrainians who fought for an SS division during World War II. And the reburial was sanctioned by church officials and overseen by officials dressed in Nazi uniforms. Ethnic Ukrainian nationalists wore helmets with swastikas and uniforms marked with Third Reich eagles during the service for 16 members of the SS Division Galicia. The ceremony took place in the village of Holohori in Ukraine's western Lviv province. Some veterans were present. During a salute over the grave, costumed reenactors used wartime-era rifles to fire a salute as their leader gave commands in German. Priests looked on, and later in the ceremony, Oleg Pankevich, a member of parliament for the political party Svoboda, which has a faction in parliament, called on Ukrainians to stand up as a nation and to resist outside oppression.